I learned long ago that anger is a luxury I cannot afford. It burns too hot, consumes too much oxygen, and leaves behind nothing but ash and regret. At 40 years old, with a mortgage hanging over my head like a guillotine and a daughter who depends on my steady hand to navigate the world, I do not have the privilege of losing my temper. I have learned to trade impulsivity for observation and reaction for calculation. This is not to say I do not feel pain. I feel it deeply, a cold weight in the center of my chest, but I have trained myself to carry it without letting it buckle my knees. That was the mindset I held on a Tuesday morning in late October. The kind of day where the sky is a flat, uncommitted gray, and the air smells of damp leaves and exhaust. I was working as a senior operations manager for a logistics firm in Chicago, a position I had held for 6 years, built on a foundation of punctuality, precision, and an unspoken agreement that my competence was invisible until something went wrong. On that day, something went wrong, but not in the way the company handbook would have predicted. I was walking from the main office building to the satellite warehouse across the street, a routine transfer of documents that required my physical signature. The walkway was exposed to the elements, a concrete path bordered by struggling ornamental bushes that had turned brown with the frost. I saw him sitting on a bench near the loading dock, away from the main flow of traffic. He was an older man, perhaps in his late 60s, wearing a coat that had seen better decades. It was worn at the elbows, the fabric thin and patched in places that suggested careful, home-stitched repair rather than professional tailoring. He was shivering, not violently, but with a persistent tremor that spoke of a body losing its battle against the cold. Beside him was a small canvas bag, the kind artists or travelers used, frayed at the seams. Most people walked past him with their eyes fixed on their phones or the horizon, the urban skill of selective blindness perfected to avoid engagement. I am not most people. I stopped. I did not stop out of pity, though pity was present. I stopped because the logic of the situation dictated that a human being in distress was a variable that needed addressing. I approached him slowly, ensuring my body language was non-threatening. I asked if he was all right. His eyes were a startlingly clear blue, sharp despite the fatigue clouding them. He told me he was waiting for a ride that wasn't coming. He mentioned a name, a company name that I recognized immediately as our parent corporation, but he spoke of it with a familiarity that seemed odd for a stranger. He said he needed to use a phone, that his had died, and he needed to make a call to resolve a situation before it became irreversible. Policy dictated I should direct him to security or the front desk. But the front desk was undergoing renovation, and security was manned by a new contractor who was known for being more aggressive than helpful. I looked at my watch. I had 12 minutes before I needed to be at the warehouse. I made a decision. I invited him into the lobby, just past the security threshold, and allowed him to use the landline at the receptionist's desk while I vouched for him. I stayed with him. I did not leave him alone with company property. I watched him make the call. He spoke in low, authoritative tones, not begging but directing. He told someone to halt a merger review. He told someone to audit the Singapore branch. It sounded like the ramblings of a delusional man, but there was a gravity to his voice that commanded the air around him. When he hung up, he thanked me. He did not offer money. He offered a look, a sustained eye contact that felt like an assessment of my character. He told me that kindness is a rare currency in the corporate world, and that I should not let them devalue it. Then he walked out into the gray morning. I returned to my task, thinking nothing more of it than a minor deviation from my routine. I signed the documents. I returned to my desk. I answered emails. I managed the workflow. It was not until 4 o'clock, when the light was beginning to fail and the office hum was dropping into the evening shift, that I was summoned to human resources. I knew before I walked through the door what the meeting was about. The air in the hallway felt thinner, charged with the static of impending conflict. I sat in the chair opposite the HR director, a woman named Brenda who valued compliance over context. She slid a paper across the desk. It was a security report. It stated that I had authorized an unauthorized individual into a restricted zone. It stated that I had neglected my duties for 15 minutes to engage with a loiterer. It stated that this was a violation of the safety protocol outlined in Section 4, paragraph 12 of the Employee Handbook. I listened to her speak. I did not interrupt. I let her finish the recitation of my infractions. When she paused for breath, I asked if there had been any security breach. She said no. I asked if any property had been damaged. She said no. I asked if the man had been violent or disruptive. She said no, but that the risk was the violation, not the outcome. I explained that the man was in distress, that the front desk was unavailable, and that I had supervised him the entire time. I explained that I had mitigated the risk by staying present. Brenda told me that mitigation was not authorization. She told me that the company could not tolerate employees who decided for themselves when rules applied. She used the word discretion, but she meant insubordination. She presented me with a severance package. It was standard, 2 weeks of pay for 6 years of service. It was an insult, mathematically and morally. I looked at the paper. I looked at her. I felt the cold weight in my chest, but I did not let it show on my face. I told her I understood. I told her I would clear my desk by the end of the day. I did not argue. I did not plead. I knew that in that room, logic was secondary to liability. They needed a scapegoat for a security lapse, and I was the convenient variable. I packed my box in silence. My colleagues avoided eye contact. They were afraid that proximity to my failure might be contagious. I walked out of the building with the box in my hands. The air was colder now. I placed the box in the trunk of my car and sat in the driver's seat for a long time. I did not cry. Crying would not pay the mortgage. Crying would not explain to my daughter why her mother was coming home early on a Tuesday. I started the car and drove. The traffic was heavy, a river of red taillights stretching toward the suburbs. I thought about the man on the bench. I wondered if he had gotten his ride. I wondered if his call had been real or the fantasy of a confused mind. I wondered if my act of decency had cost me the stability I had worked so hard to build. I arrived home at 5:30. My daughter, Chloe, was 12. She was old enough to understand loss, but young enough to believe that fairness was a law of nature. I told her I was between jobs. I told her that sometimes companies make mistakes. I told her we would be okay. I said it with a conviction I did not fully feel, but a mother's voice is a powerful tool for shaping reality. She hugged me. She did not ask for details. She trusted me. That trust was a debt I intended to honor. The weeks that followed were a study in erosion. The severance pay disappeared quickly, absorbed by the mortgage, the car note, the insurance, the groceries. I applied for jobs. I sent out resumes tailored to highlight my 6 years of operational success. I received automated rejections. I received silence. I received interviews where I was told I was overqualified, or too experienced, or that they were looking for someone with more energy. I knew what they meant. They meant I was 40. They meant I was a single mother who might need flexibility. They meant I was expensive. I adjusted my strategy. I lowered my expectations. I applied for coordinator roles, administrative roles, anything that kept the income flowing. The rejection letters piled up on the kitchen counter. I organized them by date. I tracked the responses in a spreadsheet. I treated the job hunt like a project, because if I let it become a personal failure, I would not be able to get out of bed. Chloe noticed the tension. She started doing the dishes without being asked. She stopped asking for new clothes. She tried to make herself smaller, less of a burden. I saw this, and it broke something in me that the firing had not. I told her that her needs were not burdens. I told her that we were a team. But the math was not working. The savings account was dipping into the emergency fund, and the emergency fund was designed for broken furnaces, not lost incomes. I maintained my routine. I woke up at 6. I exercised. I dressed in business casual attire even though I had nowhere to go. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop from 8 to 5. I networked. I reached out to former colleagues. Most did not answer. Those who did offered sympathy but no leads. They were afraid of associating with a terminated employee. I understood their caution. Corporate loyalty is often a mirror of self-preservation. I did not blame them. I focused on what I could control. I updated my skills. I took online courses in data analysis. I refined my resume. I kept my head up. But beneath the surface, the anxiety was a constant hum. I lay awake at night calculating numbers. If I sold the car, could I keep the house? If I took a retail job, could I afford childcare? These were not abstract questions. They were the architecture of my survival. I refused to become bitter. Bitterness would only make me less hireable. It would sour my voice in interviews. It would show in my eyes. I needed to remain sharp. I needed to remain ready. It was 3 weeks after the firing that I saw him again. I was at a coffee shop, meeting a former contact who had agreed to review my resume. The meeting had been canceled 10 minutes prior, but I was already there, so I ordered a coffee and sat by the window. I was reading the business section of the Chicago Tribune. It was a habit, keeping pace with the market even when I was out of it. There was a photograph on the front page of the business section. It was a profile piece on Elias Thorne. The name was familiar, but I had to place it. Thorne Industries, the parent corporation of the logistics firm that had fired me. The article discussed his recent return to active CEO status after a period of semi-retirement. It mentioned his reclusive nature, his habit of visiting facilities incognito. And there, in the second paragraph, was a description of a recent incident. It said the CEO had been conducting field research, visiting warehouses and offices without announcement to gauge employee morale and operational integrity. It said he had been delayed by a car service failure and had waited outside a facility. It said he had been assisted by a staff member who was subsequently terminated for violating protocol. I stopped reading. The words blurred. The noise of the coffee shop faded into a dull roar. I read the paragraph again, then a third time. The man on the bench was not a stranger. He was the owner of the company that had fired me. He was the billionaire boss. The realization did not bring a surge of triumph. It brought a cold clarity. This was not a fairy tale. This was a complication. If he knew I was fired, why had he not intervened? If he did not know, how had the story made the paper without his knowledge? I looked at the photograph. It was a formal headshot, sharp suit, confident smile. It looked nothing like the man in the worn coat shivering on the bench. But the eyes were the same. That clear, assessing blue. I folded the newspaper. I paid for my coffee. I walked out into the street. My mind was working faster than my heart. I needed information. I could not act on assumption. I went home and opened my laptop. I searched for Elias Thorne. I searched for Thorne Industries press releases. I found interviews. I found speeches. In one video, he spoke about integrity. He said that rules are tools, not masters. He said that the best employees are those who understand the spirit of the law, not just the letter. He said that he valued people who took responsibility for others. I watched the video 3 times. I listened to his tone. It was sincere. It was not corporate speak. It was the voice of the man on the bench. This confirmed he was the same person, but it did not explain the firing. Had Brenda known who he was? Unlikely. If she had known, she would have crawled over glass to help him. No, she had acted out of rigid adherence to protocol. She had fired me to protect herself, not the company. She had sacrificed me to avoid the risk of being blamed for a security breach. This was a common corporate maneuver. Identify the weak link, cut it, and claim the process was followed. I was the weak link because I had acted on humanity rather than bureaucracy. I sat back in my chair. I had a choice. I could try to contact him. I could try to leverage this information to get my job back, or I could let it go. If I contacted him, I would look like I was seeking reward for a good deed. I would look like I was trying to manipulate the situation. I prided myself on my integrity. I had lost my job because of it. I would not lose my dignity by begging for restitution. I decided to wait. I decided to see if the truth had weight on its own. If he valued integrity as much as he said in his videos, he would find out. He was conducting field research. He would hear about the turnover. He would hear about the firing. If he did not, then his words were just marketing, and I did not want to work for a man who lied. So I waited. I continued my job hunt. I applied to competitors. I had an interview with a rival logistics firm. It went well. They offered me a position. It was a step down in title, but the pay was similar. I had the offer letter in my hand. I had a deadline to accept. I looked at the letter. I looked at the newspaper clipping on my counter. I felt a strange sense of detachment. I had survived the firing. I had secured a future. The connection to Thorne was no longer a lifeline. It was just a fact. I signed the offer letter. I mailed it back. I told Chloe we had good news. We celebrated with pizza. We watched a movie. For the first time in a month, the tension in the house broke. I slept through the night. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. The area code was local, but the prefix was corporate. I answered. A voice asked for Natasha. I said this was she. The voice introduced himself as Marcus, the executive assistant to Elias Thorne. He asked if I had a moment to speak. I said I did. He told me that Mr. Thorne was reviewing recent personnel changes across the subsidiary companies. He told me that my name had come up in a report regarding termination discrepancies. He asked if I would be willing to meet with Mr. Thorne. He emphasized that it was not a request, but he framed it as a courtesy. I asked why. Marcus said that Mr. Thorne liked to understand the human element behind the data. I looked at the clock. I looked at the signed offer letter on my table. I had a job. I did not need this meeting. But curiosity is a powerful engine. And there was a part of me that wanted to hear him say it. I wanted to hear him acknowledge that I had been right. I agreed to meet. We set a time for the next morning. I did not tell my new employer. I did not tell Chloe. I kept this close. I drove to the Thorne Industries headquarters the next day. The building was a tower of glass and steel, a monument to capital. I parked in the visitor lot. I walked through the security checkpoint. I was escorted to the top floor. The air up there was different. It was quieter. The carpet was thicker. The light was softer. I was led into an office that was spacious but not ostentatious. There were books on the shelves, real books, not decorations, and there he was, Elias Thorne. He was wearing a suit now, tailored and dark. He stood when I entered. He did not smile immediately. He looked at me with those same blue eyes. He thanked me for coming. I told him I was curious. He asked me to sit. He poured me a glass of water. He did not sit behind his desk. He sat in the chair opposite me, removing the barrier of authority. He told me he had read the security report. He told me he had spoken to Brenda. He told me he knew why I was fired. I waited. I did not speak. I let him fill the silence. He said that he was testing the system. He said that he wanted to see how his managers handled unexpected variables. He said that he had not intended for anyone to lose their job. He said that when he heard what happened, he was ashamed. I listened to his apology. It was direct. It did not contain the word, but it did not contain conditions. He admitted failure. He admitted that his presence had caused harm. He asked me what I wanted. He said he could reinstate me. He said he could offer me a promotion. He said he could provide financial compensation for the stress. I looked at him. I saw the sincerity in his face, but I also saw the power he wielded. I knew that if I accepted his offer, I would always be the woman he saved. I would be a charity case. I would be a token of his benevolence. I did not want that. I wanted to be a partner. I wanted to be respected for my mind, not my mercy. I told him I had already accepted another position. I told him I did not want my old job back. I told him that the culture that allowed Brenda to fire me was still in place. I told him that reinstating me would not fix the system. It would just patch a hole. He looked at me with interest. He asked what I would do. I told him that I valued integrity. I told him that I valued clear communication. I told him that if he wanted to make it right, he should not do it for me. He should do it for the next person. I proposed a condition. I told him I would consult for his company. I would not be an employee. I would be an external advisor. I would review the HR protocols. I would review the security guidelines. I would help him build a system where discretion was valued over blind compliance. I told him I would do this for a fair market rate, and I would do it on my own schedule. I told him that I needed to honor my new commitment, but I could spare 10 hours a week. He listened. He did not interrupt. He nodded. He said that was a reasonable terms. He said he appreciated that I was thinking about the structure, not just the symptom. He said that was why he had approached me. He said he didn't want to buy my loyalty. He wanted to buy my insight. We shook hands. It was a firm handshake. There was no tension in it. It was an agreement between equals. I stood up to leave. He walked me to the door. He stopped me before I opened it. He asked me if I would have dinner with him. He said not as a boss and a consultant. He said as two people who had met under strange circumstances. He said he enjoyed my company. He said he enjoyed my clarity. I paused. I analyzed the request. It was personal. It was outside the scope of the business arrangement. I looked at him. I saw no manipulation in his eyes. I saw loneliness. I saw a man who was surrounded by people who wanted something from him, who had finally met someone who wanted nothing but truth. I said yes, but I set boundaries. I told him that dinner was dinner. It did not change the contract. It did not change the work. He agreed. He smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had seen from him. I left the building. The air outside felt different. It felt lighter. I drove to my new job. I started work the next day. It was good work. I was respected. I was paid well. And twice a week I went to Thorn Industries. I worked with the HR team. I helped them rewrite the policies. I helped them understand that risk management includes human factors. I helped them see that employees are not assets to be managed, but partners to be trusted. It was slow work. Culture does not change overnight, but I saw the shifts. I saw the managers listening more. I saw the fear decreasing. The dinners with Elias were simple. We went to quiet places. We talked about work, but we also talked about life. He told me about his wife, who had passed away years ago. He told me about his daughter, who lived in London and rarely called. He told me about the pressure of being the face of an empire. He told me that he often felt like a ghost in his own life. I told him about Chloe. I told her about the struggles of being a single mother. I told him about the fear of not being enough. He listened. He did not try to fix me. He did not offer to pay my bills. He offered his presence. He offered his attention. And in a world where everyone was trying to sell something, his attention was the most valuable gift he could give. We grew closer. It was not a rush. It was a gradual warming. Like the sun coming out after a long winter, I was careful. I guarded my heart. I had been hurt before. I knew that power dynamics could distort relationships. I made sure that our personal relationship remained separate from our professional one. I kept my records. I kept my boundaries. He respected them. He never pushed. He never pressured. He waited for me to come to him. Months passed. The consulting work was successful. The turnover rate at the subsidiary dropped. The employee satisfaction scores went up. Brenda was reassigned. She was moved to a role where she had no authority over personnel. It was not a punishment, but it was a correction. The system was healing. I was healing. I looked at my life and I saw stability. I looked at Chloe and I saw her smiling more. I looked at Elias and I saw a partner. One evening, we were having dinner at his home. He had cooked. It was a simple meal, pasta and wine. We sat on the terrace. The city lights were twinkling below us. He looked at me. He told me that he had never met anyone like me. He told me that I was the most honest person he knew. He told me that he wanted more than dinners. He told me that he wanted to build a life. I felt the cold weight in my chest, the one I had carried for so long, begin to dissolve. It was replaced by warmth. It was replaced by hope. I told him that I was cautious. I told him that I needed time. He told me he had all the time in the world. He told me that he was not going anywhere. I thought about the journey. I thought about the day on the bench. I thought about the box in the trunk of my car. I thought about the fear of the unknown. I realized that I had not been saved by a billionaire. I had saved myself. I had maintained my integrity when it cost me everything. I had stood firm when I was pressured to bend. I had negotiated from a position of strength, not desperation. Elias was not my savior. He was my witness. He was the person who saw me for who I was and chose to stand beside me. That was the difference. That was the love. It was not about rescue. It was about recognition. I took his hand. I told him that I was ready. I told him that I wanted to build a life too. We sat there in the quiet, holding hands, watching the city. There was no drama. There was no grand gesture. There was just truth. And that was enough. The resolution was not immediate. We did not get married the next week. We did not move in together the next month. We took it step by step. We introduced Chloe to Elias. It was awkward at first. She was protective of me. She tested him. He passed. He did not try to buy her affection. He did not bring her expensive gifts. He brought her time. He helped her with her homework. He listened to her stories. He treated her like a person, not a child to be managed. She accepted him. She saw that he made me happy. And for a daughter, that is the only validation that matters. We merged our lives slowly. We kept our finances separate initially. We respected each other's independence. We built a foundation of trust. It was strong, it was resilient. When conflicts arose, we talked. We did not yell, we did not hide. We sought clarity, we sought understanding. We treated our relationship like the business I had consulted on. We valued communication. We valued integrity. We valued the truth. Looking back, I realized that the firing was not a tragedy. It was a correction. It was the universe removing me from a place where I was not valued. It was pushing me toward a place where I would be seen. If I had not been fired, I would still be in that office. I would still be following rules that made no sense. I would still be hiding my light to avoid threatening others. I would not have met Elias. I would not have found my voice. I would not have learned that I could stand on my own. The pain was necessary. The loss was necessary. It cleared the space for something better. I do not wish pain on anyone, but I do not fear it anymore. I know that I can survive it. I know that I can navigate it. I know that I can come out the other side whole. I think about the women who might hear this story. I think about the women who are afraid to lose their jobs. I think about the women who are afraid to speak up. I want them to know that their integrity is their greatest asset. I want them to know that they do not have to choose between being good and being successful. They can be both. It might take longer, it might be harder, but it is worth it. I want them to know that they are not defined by their employment status. They are defined by their character. They are defined by how they treat others when no one is watching. They are defined by how they treat themselves when the world is harsh. I want them to know that love is not about being saved. It is about being seen. It is about finding someone who respects your strength and supports your vulnerability. It is about finding someone who listens. The story of the billionaire boss is often told as a fantasy. A woman helps a man, he reveals he is rich, he rewards her. It is a story of transaction, but my story is not a transaction. It is a story of alignment. It is a story of two people who values the same things finding each other in a world that often values the wrong things. It is a story of patience. It is a story of courage. It is a story of choosing clarity over anger. I chose not to sue. I chose not to scream. I chose to observe. I chose to understand. I chose to wait for the truth to surface. And when it did, I chose to handle it with grace. That is the power I want to leave with. That is the legacy I want to build. Not the money, not the title, but the peace. The peace of knowing that I did the right thing. The peace of knowing that I am loved for who I am, not what I can do. Chloe is growing up. She is watching me. She is learning from me. She sees that her mother is strong. She sees that her mother is kind. She sees that her mother is respected. That is the greatest gift I can give her. To show her that she does not have to shrink herself to fit into the world. She can expand the world to fit her. Elias sees this too. He tells me that I have changed him. He tells me that he is a better leader because of me. He tells me that he is a better man because of me. I believe him. I see the change in him. He is softer. He is more present. He is less isolated. We heal each other. We support each other. We are a team. The seasons changed. The winter turned to spring. The brown bushes outside the office turned green. The air smelled of rain and growth. I walked into the Thorn Industries building one morning. I was not an employee. I was a partner. I walked through the lobby. The security guard nodded to me. He knew me. He respected me. I walked to the elevator. I pressed the button. I looked at my reflection in the metal doors. I saw a woman who was 40. I saw the lines around my eyes. I saw the gray in my hair. I did not try to hide them. They were marks of experience. They were marks of survival. I was proud of them. The doors opened. I stepped in. I went up to the top floor. I walked into the office. Elias was there. He looked up. He smiled. I smiled back. We went to work. We went to life. We went forward. There are no guarantees in life. I know this. I know that things can change. I know that luck can run out. But I also know that I have the tools to handle it. I have my mind. I have my integrity. I have my daughter. I have my partner. I have the truth. And as long as I have those, I will be okay. I will always be okay. The fear is gone. The anxiety is managed. The future is open. I am not waiting for the next shoe to drop. I am walking toward the next horizon. I am ready. I am whole. This is the story I tell myself when the doubts creep in. This is the story I tell Chloe when she is afraid. This is the story I offer to the world. It is not a story of magic. It is a story of choice. I chose to help a stranger. I chose to accept the consequence. I chose to seek the truth. I chose to negotiate with dignity. I chose to love with caution. I chose to trust with wisdom. Every step was a choice, and every choice led me here, to this moment, to this peace, to this love. I remember the cold bench. I remember the gray sky. I remember the box in the trunk. They are not scars, they are markers. They mark the path I took. They mark the distance I traveled. They mark the person I became. I do not regret the pain. I do not regret the loss. I accept them as part of the journey. They made me stronger. They made me clearer. They made me ready. And now I am here. I am Natasha. I am a mother. I am a partner. I am a woman who knows her worth. And that is the greatest resolution of all. The sun is setting now. The light is golden. It is warm. It is soft. I sit on the terrace with Elias. Chloe is inside doing her homework. The city is quiet. The world is still. I take a breath. I feel the air in my lungs. I feel the beat of my heart. I feel the hand of the man I love in mine. I am safe. I am secure. I am loved. And I know with absolute certainty that I earned this. I earned this not by luck, but by being who I am, by standing firm, by speaking truth, by choosing clarity over anger. That is the secret. That is the key. And I hold it tight. I will not let it go. I will carry it forward. I will share it with my daughter. I will share it with the world. Because everyone deserves to know that they are enough. Everyone deserves to know that integrity pays. Everyone deserves to know that love is possible, even after the loss, even after the pain, even after the firing. Especially then, so I sit here. I watch the sun go down. I watch the lights come on. I watch the city breathe. And I know that tomorrow will come. And I will be ready. I will be strong. I will be kind. I will be true. That is my promise. That is my vow to myself, to my daughter, to the man beside me, to the world. I will live with integrity. I will live with love. I will live with truth. And that is enough. That is everything. The story is over. The life continues. And it is good. It is very good.